The Huntsman, Winter's War is a good example of what a modern fantasy film should be, at least in parts. While it does not offer the strongest plot, an issue which I think is more tied to its tenuous connections to the first film, it does offer the framework to deliver on the rest of what is an overall quality film. The design, acting, action, and general care taken by the filmmakers makes this one of the more enjoyable fantasy movies I have seen in the past few years.
Unlike anything the world has ever known.
The plot is the biggest drawback, and most of that is unfortunately due to the first film. Because this is a franchise flick, a necessary evil to get this kind of movie made, there were some serious storytelling gymnastics that had to happen in the first 15 minutes of the film to make it fit within the context of the franchise. And after that treacherous affair, it falls into a more subdued, predictable narrative that does its best to surprise, but frankly falls flat. The Snow White connection ends up dooming the plot, and it's only made bearable by trying to shift the focus by stealing concepts from Frozen, which unfortunately makes this feel derivative. In the end, the plot was too restricted by these elements to be considered outstanding, in what could have otherwise been positively described as someone's Dungeons & Dragons campaign.
Nightmare is an evil and dangerous thing. We have to destroy it.
However, there are thankfully things that do redeem this film to an extent. Everyone acted their hearts out, continually trying to steal scenes with their respective roles. Charlize Theron does her best to take on what was once a unique role, which has now been drastically simplified and reduced. But she can still play the part of the evil queen in only a way that she could. Emily Blunt chose her role of not Elsa to be one of ultra stoicism, which fits her character well based on the plot, but it ended up being a little bit too reminiscent of Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones. Chris Hemsworth did a fine job as the title lead, and Jessica Chastain, who I felt would not fit the role, ended up playing her part serviceably. The supporting actors playing the dwarves, headed up by Nick Frost, resulted in the more delightful characters.
You will train.
Where this movie shines, however, is the setting, sets, props, and costumes. The design philosophy was one of uniqueness. Every scene and every set was a visual spectacle. The props all had the feel of being designed for this film alone, not too dissimilar from how things were handled in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit films. No recycled bits from other movies in sight. And the costumes, especially the dresses of the queens, were stunning. Much like the first film, they wanted to showcase the dresses, and this resulted in a dress change about every 10 seconds for the two queens.
But should any harm come to the child, your sister's power will be unleashed.
So the question comes up, is this worth seeing in theaters? Probably not. Unless you are a costumer, cosplayer, or general maker looking for inspiration, you can probably sit this one out until the DVD release. However, I would highly recommend this film for fantasy enthusiasts because the world building is wonderfully exciting. Every element of the film is a welcome enough distraction from the plot to make it watchable and enjoyable. As long as you are the type of person who can appreciate the craftsmanship over the end product, this film is for you. At the very least, my hopes for the future of fantasy films looks brighter as we can at least see that medieval fantasy as a genre still has some real potential. I give The Huntsman, Winter's War, a 3.5 out of 5.